So Donkey Kong 64 was convoluted. That's kind of hard to dispute. It's been repeatedly criticized for its megaton of collectibles of, well, questionable purpose. But, despite the sheer amount of things that the player needs to keep track of and do, the vast majority of the game remains accessible to new players. In my opinion, Donkey Kong 64 does an excellent job in introducing newcomers to 3D platforming. In this video, I'm going to be dissecting the first major world of the game, Jungle Japes. We're going to see how DK64 teaches its players how to approach 3D platforming, as well as introduce them to the game in general. For a bit of context, the game was made by the brilliant people at Rare, a company famed for the Donkey Kong Country series. Now, those of you unfamiliar with the Donkey Kong series should know that Jungle Japes, featured in Donkey Kong 64, is actually a throwback to the first world of the original Donkey Kong Country of the Super Nintendo. Several areas and challenges are practically an exact 3D interpretation of the original games. This wasn't Rare's first 3D platformer either, with the critically acclaimed Banjo-Kazooie setting the precedent just a year prior. And it shows, for better or for worse. The game is much, much larger, with huge sprawling worlds, countless types of collectibles, and 5 playable characters. After wrapping up the game's initial tutorial, a mysterious cave will appear on the DK Isles, the game's overworld. Donkey Kong 64 makes heavy use of cutscenes to alert the player to changes within the environment, a stark departure from the less cinematic approaches of other 3D platformers at the time. The aforementioned cave contains the level's lobby, in which you are given a little taste of the world ahead, a jungle-fied remix of the overworld's theme playing as you approach the level portal itself. Muted lighting helps sets the mood. While this time it's a bit of a freebie, you'll generally have to cash in a significant amount of golden bananas, this game's versions of Power Stars from Super Mario 64, to actually enter the level proper. The talking billboard here blocks the way till you pay the toll. There's also hint doors hosted by the ghostly granny Wrinkly Kong, which generally give tips for some of the world's more obtuse golden banana puzzles, though this is fairly useless on the first visit as you can only use Donkey Kong's door. That's right, they're color-coded. Kong's being restricted to a certain color is a recurring theme throughout the game, and these hint doors immediately convey this fact. At the beginning of the level, you're actually walked into what's effectively a giant hallway, forcing you to swing to a switch to open up more of the level proper. While a mundane task, finding triggers to doors is the core exploration loop of the game, and will repeatedly be required throughout this world and the others. Squawks the Parrot will also repeatedly harass you to provide instruction and guidance, though he is more inclined to give you the what rather than the why. You'll be collecting a whole lot of stuff in this world, and you probably won't know what it does for a long while. As you move into the world's main area, you're teased by doors you cannot open, with symbols you don't really know how to interact with yet. This conveys another thing you'll be doing quite a bit: backtracking. With 5 separate Kongs, you're going to be going through most areas up to 5 times. A sweeping cutscene gives you the lay of the land, which is quite open looking. This is a bit of a ruse, however, as most of the level is still sealed until you rescue Diddy Kong, as you are once again told via cutscene. It's a bit of a straight line to your destination, and this incredibly enticing vine positioned directly in front of your view will take you there. It's also worth mentioning the existence of matching teleport pads that can quickly take you to places you previously explored, though it's quite easy to forget which number goes where. While the area is pretty fun to climb about and get your bearings, there is also some hazards to be mindful of. Enemies are scattered throughout the level. Naughty, zingers, clumps, kasplats, purple claptraps, the whole alphabet's here to kick your ass. Like most platformers at the time though, they served more as a nuisance to the player, and are often here to fill out empty space as well as act as mobile health kits. Despite their relative incompetence, they are cleverly utilized throughout the level. The most dangerous enemies, clumps and purple claptraps, are hidden away within locked areas, and nothing weaker than a grenade toss will do them in. Kasplats are kinda special in that they're effectively golden banana piñatas, tough as nails but dropping a schematic that you can cash in for a banana at a certain weasel's house. Their hair is color-coded, so make sure you beat them up with the right Kong, or you'll be rewarded with absolutely nothing. If you're colorblind or stupid like me, it can sometimes be kinda tricky to tell what color their hair is, though nearby colored bananas will usually give you a hint. Last, but not least, we have zingers, flying enemies that initially require a gun to take out, which makes getting your hands on one all the more enticing. Thankfully, Funky Kong's place is right along the path you have to take to get to Diddy, though you may have to scour the mountain a bit to get enough coins to purchase the coconut gun for Donkey Kong. There's also the arena, which is, it's required to fight the final boss, but that's basically it. The gun is quickly introduced as a crucial tool, giving you the leg up over many enemy types as well as activating switches throughout the level. Being able to position yourself and aim quickly is key to succeeding at the game's more difficult challenges. This is immediately enforced after acquiring your coconut gun, hitting targets being a requirement to free Diddy and open access to more of Jungle Japes. This progressive opening up of the world is actually quite effective at easing the player into how Donkey Kong 64 should be approached. The worlds are massive, and the game is progressively teaching you how to solve problems along your way. For every obstacle, there's a tool, and you won't be getting far without it. Upon freeing Diddy, you'll gain access to several exciting locales, and by this point you should have enough colored bananas to fight the boss if you should choose. Colored bananas are scattered throughout each level and can only be collected by the corresponding Kong. Generally, they're used by the developers to help you track places you've been, as well as hint at what Kongs are needed in specific situations. While good in theory, the placement of these collectibles are often criticized due to the need to constantly backtrack areas because you don't have the correct Kong to collect. To cash in those colored bananas, you'll have to take a portal to the level's guardians, Trough and Scoff. Shove enough of the phallic fruit down Trough's throat and you'll find the way to the boss dramatically opening. This is hands down the most exciting part of Jungle Japes, the suspense quickly mounting as ominous music plays. You find yourself wondering what the hell you could possibly be up against. The boss itself is none other than Armadillo, a jumbo armadillo wearing a mechanical suit of armor. While he's not a very challenging opponent, the encounter is quite exciting as you duke it out in a raging thunderstorm. Rare really pulled out all the stops for their boss battles, showing off effects that are very impressive. A little fun fact, did you know that Armadillo is based off of the army enemy from the first Donkey Kong Country? Funner fact, did you know said armies could be found in the Donkey Kong 64 prototype? Oh, on second thought, some things are probably best left forgotten. Either way, 3 smacks with an explosive barrel and he's donezo, dropping a key that will unlock the next world. While not exceptionally hard, he's certainly memorable, and it definitely leaves you stoked to see what the other game bosses are going to be. With Armadillo down, it's time to kiss Jungle Japes goodbye, the obligatory desert level next on your repertoire. Just kidding, of course. You think that's all you have to do? Nope. Your first run through, you can at most beat 2/5 of the level. There's still 3 other Kongs you're going to have to collect junk with. While you have the key to unlock the next world's lobby, it's fairly useless without enough golden bananas to actually enter the next world. Also, through a complex chain of events, you need to hit a certain colored banana count, or you'll hit a literal door at the final boss, meaning you're really going to want to come back here later to get as many colored bananas as you can. Now admittedly, not all golden bananas are equal in terms of fun or challenge. There's 25 of the suckers in Jungle Japes, and while the levels are pretty big, you're gonna see a lot of effective repeats. For each world, there's generally 1 or 2 pretty good golden bananas per Kong, and Jungle Japes is no exception to the rule. In Jungle Japes, the best challenge by far is the minecart ride. Locked away inside a rather suspicious mound is an entire mining facility, an exciting discovery to say the least, only accessible by Diddy Kong. The industrial environment is stuffed to the brim with Kremlings, and is in stark contrast to the friendly, natural world of the rest of the jungle. Better hope you bought Diddy's first power-up from Cranky Kong ahead of time, though. The ride is fairly easy, but entertaining nevertheless, allowing the player to adjust their speed, jump, and grab to collect as many coins as possible without getting walloped. Here you'll be making decisions at a breakneck pace, coins and other visual cues helping you indicate the right action to take. Right behind that in terms of fun is DK's classic barrel course. A pretty direct translation of the barrel courses in the original Country games, it works pretty decently in first person. There's no real penalties for missing, outside of doing the course again. At the end of the day, it's a nice timing challenge that helps break up the flow of normal gameplay. Also, there's a few bananas locked behind none other than Rambi the Rhino. While this is probably the most fun iteration of the rhinoceros, he's painfully underutilized. You're only allowed to play as him in this teeny tiny area. Go an inch over the boundary and you're suddenly switched back to Donkey Kong. As a kid, I always assumed it was because the developers didn't program swimming for him. But if you look at the prototype footage, yeah, so a little disappointing, but it's fun while it lasts. There's also a whole slew of hit, switch, and go to location types of bananas. The main challenge here is just remembering where the hell the spot shown was. You'll have to effectively do the same course 5 times in this level, one for each Kong, I'm afraid. You'll find the majority of these golden bananas scattered about the various points of interest in the level, the majority of which are only accessible once certain Kongs and abilities are unlocked. Hints on how to get them are usually conveyed via the presence of character-specific pads and power-ups. The only time you're going to get stuck is if you simply don't have the tool you need yet. Another way you'll be getting golden bananas are bonus barrels, another throwback to the original Donkey Kong Country bonus rooms. Though this time only some of them are platforming challenges, most of them are minigames which are kind of terrible. Jungle Japes doesn't have the infamous Beaver Bother, but it does have the minecart minigame, which is just as horrific in my opinion. There's also quite a few bananas that are effectively throwaways, being gifted for simply clearing an obstacle you had to clear anyways. Each region of the level has a pretty distinct style to help the player orient themselves, with atmosphere changing drastically depending on your location. This is especially important considering the lack of in-game map to help you find your way. Visually speaking, Jungle Japes was pretty impressive at the time, displaying complex geometry and quality texture work, with heavy use of complex lighting effects. The lack of level fog also did wonders for making the game look good up to this day. This comes at a bit of a cost, however, with the frame rate noticeably chugging at certain big sections. You can tell the devs really poured a lot of time into developing the atmosphere. And speaking of atmosphere, the audio work is also pretty excellent, with the instrumentation changing to match the mood of different level areas. Heavy use of animal noises and other jungle ambience adds some additional complexity to the game's environments. The music is pretty catchy, a classic DK theme swing that perfectly blends in with the rest of the series. Ironically, this is also the audio's greatest weakness, which is that while the Jungle Japes theme is great, it fails to really distinguish itself from the rest of the series. So now that we've thoroughly delved into the level, we gotta ask ourselves, is it good? Does it still hold up today? Is this level really an effective introduction to the world of Donkey Kong 64? And you know what, I say it mostly does. It does a pretty great job at translating that old 2D DK we know and love into a collectathon like Banjo-Kazooie. There's plenty of memorable and exciting moments that makes you eager to see what the rest of the game has in store. It also refrains from dumping too much info on you right out the gate. There's a lot of things you collect and interact with, and it's usually pretty good about telling you when they become relevant. Really, the biggest flaw of Jungle Japes is more so due to the structure of Donkey Kong 64 itself than the fault of the level, and that flaw is backtracking. Jungle Japes is so horrifically bad when it comes to front-loading the good stuff, you're going to be experiencing the best it has to offer your first visit. Coming back to this worlds later with all the Kongs and a host of new abilities is a bit of a chore. And if you want to face the final boss, you'll have to grab as many colored and golden bananas from this level as possible, and the remaining challenges are fairly bland in comparison. So let's kind of look at an overview here. I mean, sure, the implementation was a little clunky, there was filler, there was probably too much backtracking, and not all the activities were all that exciting. However, it did successfully teach its players how to approach Donkey Kong 64's massive game world, and did so with phenomenal presentation that is really tough to beat. While there may not have been a sequel to Donkey Kong 64, Jungle Japes has in fact left a legacy, becoming a staple of the Smash Bros. Series oddly enough. And hey, DK64 ever gets a spiritual sequel, we may just find ourselves visiting it once more. And that's all I got for Jungle Japes. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments below. I'm still kind of figuring out this format, so expect future videos to be slightly different from this. Until next time, see ya!